IES lights, and they're super magical. And I have some, just for the record, under, if you're in sample models, I'm just going to be using, it's not particularly like an interactive thing, but I have this flashlight file, and I have a bunch of like IES lights and different scenes I'm going to be pulling open. Nothing particularly interesting is happening in them, but if you want to follow along, that's the files I will be using. But basically, IES lights just have different profiles than like a standard area light. So they're really good for adding sort of additional interesting looking lighting. So you can see in here in my source image is a flashlight. I have this like IES light pack. And this is pretty much what most IES light packs will look like. So it'll give you the little file, which you plug into Maya. I'll show you how to do that in a second. And then it's going to give you a preview of each of the profiles of the light that correspond to the file, so you don't need to just like import everyone and hope that you get one that works. In terms of downloading these things, I pretty much will just Google like IES light download. The one that I used that's in the file pack is like Leo Moon. But there's a bunch of different places that have these. Some are paid, some are not paid, but you can find them pretty readily everywhere. Obviously just use your discretion. If it looks like a super sketchy website, maybe find them somewhere else. But like the Leo Moon ones tend to be pretty good. I think the ones from All 3D Free are also usually pretty good. But there's no particular place I get these from. I literally just do search like IES light download and then find some and go for it. Too much stuff pulled open. All right. So, adding IES lights. It's honestly a fairly straightforward process. I'm going to get my render view going, and I'm going to throw in a, in the Arnold Lights tab, you're looking for photometric light. And you'll notice that as soon as I add that into my scene, like nothing's showing up here. That's not so much a light intensity thing, like if I click on this and set the intensity up to 10, that's not why it's not showing up. For these to work, you actually need to map in one of those IES files I showed you into right here where it says photometry light. I don't know how you actually pronounce that properly. But there's going to be, again, that little drop down where it's like, hey, you need to put a file in me. And I should actually, before I get super crazy into this, let me set my project really quick, like a real person. But basically, as soon as you import a light into that, as soon as you import a light profile into this light little box here, it should show up and actually start displaying lights. So I'm just going to say, what does scatter light IES look like? And I should play my render view, but you can see that now it's actually, that light is showing up. And you can see it does actually have a very strange, like kind of interesting looking profile there, where it's not just like a, square of plain light, it's very like wiggly. And that's kind of the beauty and power of IES lights. Very strange looking render. So they get really interesting, like as I rotate this around, I was trying something new, I don't think I like it. As I rotate this around, you can see that it's actually changing sort of the profile and the side view of the light. So they do really interesting stuff if you just sort of rake them across the surface of your light, or of your whatever, walls, whatever you're trying to light. I actually really like this one. Don't be afraid to set the intensity of your light up to like something really ridiculous. I found a lot of times these do need to be set up kind of oftentimes brighter than area lights. Sometimes they'll plug in a new map and it'll end up looking different, and you'll have to adjust it based off of the IES profile that you use. But just like any other light, you can adjust, the color if you're in the mood for alien abductions. You can use color, temperature, kind of whatever. Apart from needing this profile, they behave pretty much just like any other light that you would find in Arnold. They have their own samples, etc. So, again, I'm just gonna grab another random. Try umbrella IES. That one's really boring. But there's like a bunch of different, things that you can use from this. In this case, we have a very impressive looking spotlight. But again, this totally looks different, so I'm just going to throw in a standard area light just to, I guess, make a point of how much nicer IES lights look. So here is my standard area light, and I'm just gonna jack up the exposure. And this is like so much more interesting. I'm just gonna set this to like 8. But it has, you know, much more visual interest in the actual pattern here. Very different in terms of the spotlight, whereas the area light just sort of exists there. And then a lot of times with area lights, if they're really close to a wall or something, you'll see that really hard line from the side of the area light. So IES lights can be used to kind of prevent that. But these are really good for stuff like wall sconces. I have, and this is just looking in the images of that weird flashlight folder that I have. And I have labeled all of these incorrectly, so none of these make any sense in terms of the what images I'm looking at, but here's an example. So flashlight I made, default area light, compared to any one of these other IES lights. And you can see that, I mean, I don't know if this one's particularly realistic for a flashlight, but it's certainly more visually interesting than this. So they're really good, again, for like directed lights, or if you're doing, you know, wall sconces, stuff like that. Even just any kind of, you know, light on the ceiling, this is going to make a lot more sort of interesting realism to your scene.
Can you still make mesh lights with those?
I've never tried it, but I'd be inclined to say no. I think there are. I'll show you how to set them up in Redshift in like 2 seconds. It's pretty much the same process, but I think these IES profiles are actually some kind of weird like mesh that you make that end up somehow being converted into IES lights. I haven't looked into the process, but like I think they do sort of start out as spheres, more or less. But
Like just light on top of something if you want to look like it's a line.
yeah, or like a lot of times, so they'll use them a lot for, again, like architectural lighting. So like, here's an example like where they used IES lights. So they made this thing. This might be like a little, like tiny little mesh light. This like emissive thing here. But then they used an IES light to sort of accent and make more interesting shadows on the wall, if that makes sense. Does that kind of answer your question?
I think so.
Okay. Basically, you can't attach these to a specific mesh, as far as I'm aware of. It would more just be sort of a thing, like an area light that you just throw into your scene. They just kind of look nicer. You can totally use them like in conjunction with mesh lights, and again, like if you wanted to, you could turn this into a mesh light and also just put an IES light in it, so you can create like a sort of multiple effect, if that makes sense, or just like use multiple lights to achieve the effect you want. That's not at all uncommon to do, but yeah. All right, so any other questions about setting IES lights up in Arnold, why you'd want to use them, etc.? All right. Real quick, I'm going to show you how to set them up in Redshift. Like I mentioned, it's pretty much the exact same process. Just go into Redshift, Lights menu. In this case, they actually call it IES light instead of photometric light. I'm just going to chuck that in my scene, get my render view going. And same as Arnold, nothing happens until you actually plug in an IES profile. So just grab this. That's actually pretty cool. And then it shows up. So again, pretty much exactly the same process. They just call the light IES light instead of photometric light. But that is IES lights in a nutshell. Are there any questions before we go on to other things? Cool. Fairly straightforward. They just look really pretty.